Hello, welcome to the Hockey Show. My name is Roy Bellamy. David Druk and the Hockey News is right there. We are joined by soon-to-be Hall of Famer, I'm sure.
Yes.
Sean McDonough, ESPN, and he's doing college football right now, obviously. But obviously, we known him for baseball and hockey, obviously, because last season you did the playoffs, and an interesting thing actually happened during the playoffs. You got sick, as a play-by-play person. What happens then? Obviously,
that can't be easy.
That cannot be easy at all.
No, the first thing that happens is you panic, and then you think, "Why me?" Right? I've waited my whole life to do the Stanley Cup final. But fortunately, it was the second one that we've had a chance to do in the third playoffs, because, as you know, we alternate years with the final with our friends at Turner.
Mm-hmm.
But I said to a bunch of friends of mine in the business, you'd rather break your leg, right? At least you could still announce the game.
Yeah.
But when you have a upper respiratory infection, whatever it was I had going on that kept lingering and then actually came back, you can't announce the game. Or you can, but you certainly can't do it as well as you would like and with the oomph that you would like. So It was frustrating and it was depressing. But you know what? You kind of power through it. And then, we did obviously have the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow with an epic Stanley Cup final, as it turned out, in a great Game 7. So, and when I think back on it, I think how blessed I was and we all were to be a part of that, rather than the unfortunate thing that I had to miss one game and probably should have missed another one in a different series.
About that. So I remember I think it was the Rangers series, and I think it was Game 1 that you called, and then Game 2 you weren't there. If I'm wrong, correct me, but I think that's how it went down. That series was so intense. You had 3 straight overtime games. How hard was that? I mean, I know you just kind of talked about how it's obviously it must be excruciating because you want to be there. It's Madison Square Garden. It's the final. I just remember thinking, and I think Roy and I were talking about it at the time, just the series is epic. We've been waiting for it the whole playoff. Amazing goaltending, the 2 best teams in the Eastern Conference. I don't know. It's just sitting there and watching that must have been excruciating for you.
Yeah, it was awful. It really was. It was depressing. I thought when I first got to New York, it was just allergies, because I get, like a lot of people, seasonal allergies in the spring.
Right.
But then I started, not only to be gross, but I started coughing up stuff that was of odd color.
Still common for New York City in that time of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen the street?
Yeah.
So I thought, oh gosh, that isn't the typical allergy symptom that I get. So, talked to my doctor in Boston, talked to doctors in New York, got on every allergy and other medicine you can get to try to knock out whatever it was that was going on. And, it just didn't happen. So, I was literally, I called our bosses, said, here's what I sound like. Fortunately, Bob Wischusen lives, very close to MSG. But yeah, I was sitting in my hotel room watching the game thinking, this really sucks, and what I appreciated was our 2 guys who were always in the booth with us, who set up the booth and do the audio, Shep and Willie. I was really sad right before the game, and then they sent me a picture in the booth doing the little heart thing that people do, we still love you and we miss you and we wish you were here. So it makes you appreciate that you're blessed to work with nice people like that. But
nice.
Yeah, it was hard. But and everything in my career, and I talk a lot about this to colleagues of mine who complain, I don't know why I'm doing this football game because I'm better than him or her and they're doing that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think, well, you can obsess about the negative, or you can feel fortunate and blessed that, okay, you're in the 99th percentile still of sports play-by-play, but you're doing major events on ESPN. And there are literally thousands of play-by-play people around North America at every level who would kill to do one event ever on ESPN, regardless of what it is. So, yeah, it was lousy to miss that game and then to croak my way through Game 3 in Edmonton. But again, I look at the big picture and feel I was very blessed to be able to do all those other games and particularly have the Stanley Cup final that we had.
Well, you sound better now. So, and good job by Bob.
It took a while. It doesn't help you recover when you're sick, when we have the travel that we had. I don't know. Yeah. I've said this many times. I don't know how the players do it. The grind, basically every other day, it's a grind for me. I'm older than the players, obviously, but And I remember 2 years ago when the Rangers made their run and they were playing at Tampa Bay. You know, they beat the Penguins in that great first round series in 7 games, and they beat Carolina. And then I was in the hotel in Tampa, and the elevator door opens, and 2 Rangers get on, and they have bandages and ice packs and bruises and cuts and everything. And I remember thinking, you guys must be exhausted. You're about to play your 20th game in 40 days. So I don't think that the physical toll that it takes on these guys is really appreciated enough, because it's grueling. Grueling's an exaggeration. It's hard even when you're just a broadcaster.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not exactly easy being a broadcaster having to travel either. And the life of a play-by-play guy must be exhausting as well. Like, I mean, looking over.
Well, there was 14 hours. You guys did it. Our trip. The first time we went back and forth basically 4 times from Fort Lauderdale to Edmonton, twice in each direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And the first time after game 2, when we went from Fort Lauderdale to Edmonton, it was 14 hours door to door from when I left the hotel.
Yeah, you had that crazy rainstorm down here that screwed everybody's travel plans up after game 2.
Yeah, that's right. We had the rainstorm. We had to stop in Kansas City to refuel. When we got to Edmonton, there was bad weather and rush hour. So no one cares. Again, I would if it took 1,000 hours, I was happy to have the opportunity to do the trip.
We just complain to each other. Nobody else cares.
No, but I'm saying over a long career such as Sean's, like you're doing multiple sports sometimes at the same time, such as Kevin Harlan and Kenny Albert.
Yeah,
and you're going from place to place. That sounds like a misery, especially if you're not chartering like teams are.
Yeah,
right.
Well, it just goes back to what
and it's
Sean
funny
said,
you mentioned it, because Kevin Harlan's been a great friend of mine. We interned together at a place called Enterprise Radio in the summer of 1981 when I was at Syracuse and he was at the University of Kansas, and we've been great pals ever since.
Mm-hmm.
So he was texting me a lot, and I was calling and texting him when I was sick. But what do you do when this happens to you? Because it happens to all of us eventually. Everybody has their home remedies and that sort of thing. So part of it is, you need to take care of yourself, right? I mean, you can't be, okay, I know we're flying to Edmonton tomorrow. It's going to be a 14-hour day, but let's stay out till 2 a.m. and go have a good time.
No, that's
when
me.
The game ends, you better go home and hydrate and go to bed. And I'm certainly smart enough to do that. So
no, that's Dave.
Yeah,
I talked a lot to Kevin about, how do you handle situations like this? And he offered some great advice.
Yeah. Let's go back to the Stanley Cup final here. And obviously that was I could say it was a tremendous 7-game series, and us covering the Panthers, we happen to be fans as well.
That was a hell of a series.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't feel that way when they were up 3-0 and then somehow there's a game 7. But yeah, once game 7 happened, it was just a tremendous game. Why don't you go over your feelings over the span of the entire final?
Yeah, it was kind of probably what most people experience. What we said at the beginning of this about you kind of wait your whole life to do the Stanley Cup final. And, the first one we had a couple of years ago, the Colorado-Tampa Bay series, was fine. I don't think it was memorable for people probably outside of those 2 cities when we look back historically. But, now we have this one, and we're thinking, oh, gosh, this is going to be a sweep. And then, as you guys know, it turned dramatically to the point where when it got to the 7th game, you wondered, how does Florida get this back, right? Has momentum gone completely against them? Has Edmonton kind of figured out how to play against this smothering style? But it's kind of like the way the whole thing went. Right when you think where it's going, it turns and goes the other way. So I wasn't surprised that Game 7 went the way it did. I don't think just about any result would have surprised me, but. It was just an epic series. I said at the beginning of Game 7, I thought it was really the finishing touch on the greatest season in the history of the NHL. And I'm not the world's foremost historian. I wasn't around in 1920 to call the games, but it would be hard to beat everything that you had last year. With the close races, the record attendance, the record ratings, the compelling playoff series, the individual achievements, of so many of the best players in the game. The game is better than it's ever been. Just the pace of it, the athleticism of the players, the scoring. So, I think it was the best season in the history of the NHL. excuse me, and it had the perfect ending, the ending that it deserved.
Kind of fitting, Roy, that the best season perhaps in NHL history ended with the Florida Panthers winning the Stanley Cup.
Hey, listen,
just had to throw that in there.
I'm just saying.
Just had to throw that in there.
When did you realize that this game was over? For me, it was the penalty kill when Kevin Stanley's stick broke. It was basically 5 on 3.5 at that point, and the Panthers somehow killed that off.
For me, it was when the puck was in the corner with 3 seconds to go.
Nice.
Edmonton had some chances, as you guys know, in the third period. I said it a couple times. I think I said it with about a minute or so to go. It looked like they were out of gas, right? It's the 7th game. It's the grueling back and forth. And then, McDavid and those guys played about half the third period, maybe a little more. I don't remember the exact number, but it was right around 10 minutes. So, I just remember thinking maybe with about a minute to go, I don't know if they have enough left in the tank to get the tying goal. And then I just thought it was so fitting, that the puck basically went in the corner and stayed there because, that's where the Florida Panthers should have clinched the Stanley Cup, up against the wall where they do so much of their great work.
I have to be a fan for a second, Sean. As Roy mentioned, him and I are big fans of your work, and as broadcasters, as hockey guys. So just putting my fan hat on for a second, just over the course of your career, is there any biggest calls, memorable calls?
It should be an easy one, right?
Well,
I mean, it's pretty easy.
You never know. I gotta ask though. When I say what's your favorite call or like the biggest call of your life, like what pops up?
Touch them all, Joe.
Yeah. Although, you know what? It's funny, Roy. That wasn't me.
Oh, it wasn't?
No, and it happens all the time. Touch 'em all Joe was Tom Cheek, who was the radio broadcaster for the Toronto Blue Jays. I was doing that game. I liked my call of it.
Yeah.
I'm satisfied with it. But yeah, to have the chance to do that, in 1993 to do the World Series for CBS, when it ended, it was only the second time in the history of the World Series it ever ended on a home run. The other one was Bill Mazeroski. The year before, Sid Bream, the Pirates. That's one of the greatest baseball games of all time. The Joe Carter thing was epic and historic, but it was Game 6, right? Even if Toronto didn't win that game, there was still going to be a Game 7. So if that had been a Game 7, I think it would be in a different place historically. But the Sid Bream game, the Pirates are down 2-0, ahead 2-0 going to the bottom of the ninth in Atlanta. Atlanta's a big favorite. It's the last hurrah for this Pittsburgh group with Jim Leland and Bonds and all these guys. And, so they blew a 2-0 lead, and Atlanta scores 3 runs in the bottom of the ninth, and Sid Bream is safe by that much. And it was probably the first of my infamous voice cracks. Which one of those was the Michigan State football game where all Michigan had to do was get the punt off on the last play of the game, and they botched the snap, and the ball goes in the air, and Jalen Watts-Jackson ran it in. At the beginning, I was kind of embarrassed. Oh, my voice cracked. But, I think the call of the moments should reflect the moment, right? And that was the most shocking ending I think I've ever seen. So, I hope that my call of it and the voice crack just kind of reflected what everybody else was thinking as they watched that. Like, that's the most unbelievable ending I've ever seen in my life.
That's what I love.
And I was proud of the end of I was proud of the end of the Game 7. It was funny. I'm on a group text chat. We Syracuse play-by-play people. There's too many of us, and people in the business roll their eyes like, "Oh God, you're another Syracuse broadcaster." But
you and Northwestern.
I'm on a text chain with maybe 20. Mike Tirico, Dave Pash, Ian Eagle, a lot of great broadcasters around the country. And the morning of Game 7, I asked them, if you were in my situation, would you not want to say script what you want to say, but kind of have it in your head what you want to say, or would you just go with the moment? And the consensus was go with the moment. And I really didn't have anything prepared to say, but I just said the Florida Panthers have won the Stanley Cup. Hopefully, I had enough voice then to give it a little punch. And as I watch it back, I just think that it built up to the finish, and it was simple, but I said it and got out of the way, and I was pleased with the way that went, and very proud of our crew. All the compelling shots after that of Paul Maurice hugging his coaches, and Keith Tkachuk coming down and hugging Matthew, and with tears in his eyes, and the best thing you can do in those big situations is once you put the punctuation on it, stop talking and get out of the way.
Yeah, that shot of Paul Maurice lifting the cup with his eyes closed is like finally on his face almost. Like that is everlasting of a shot from any sport for me. So yes, that is great.
Yeah,
and, it's great
it
to
was
see you
right.
healthy,
And he
by the
was
way.
going. And I mean, to me, that's part of what made Game 7 so awesome, right? We
Yeah.
told his story a lot during the year. Coaching lifer, among the most wins of all time, the most losses of all time. Thought he was done coaching, came back, became this kind of beloved figure, not just for his coaching, but for the way he interacts with us and interacts with the public. And then he's going to win the cup. It's the greatest story ever. And now he might be the coach of the biggest collapse ever, right? So for him, that Game 7, was such a legacy-changing thing. And we're not supposed to care who wins, and I really don't. At least the vast majority of the time. But I was happy for him, and I would have been happy for Coach Knobloch and Edmonton too. We have friends on both sides, but you had to feel really happy for Paul, and I was really happy for him.
Yeah, you gotta be happy for the good guys,
He's a really good guy.
Yeah,
he's a really good guy,
Paul's
and his
the
son's a good broadcaster. I've been interacting with Jake a little bit. He reached out to me on a text through our mutual friend Trip Tracy with the Carolina Hurricanes, and asked me to watch some of his tapes and give him a little feedback. And he's really good.
Yeah,
I know
Paul,
what it's like to be the son of somebody, and people think, oh, you're kind of getting these opportunities because of your dad. Jake's going to get a really good opportunity, and it's not going to be because of his dad. It's going to be because he's really good.
No, Jake does it all on his own, man. It's pretty cool what he's done there out in Estero. I was just talking to him the other day at Panthers camp, actually. He said he's a good kid. And Jake,
he really is.
You're a good kid, but I'm beating you in our fantasy football league. Jake. I'm sorry. I love you, buddy, but you're going down.
He didn't mention that when we chatted not too long ago.
I don't blame. He's 0-3, so I don't blame him.
And Paul's saying that he that his son Jake winning a Stanley Cup, winning a championship, I should say, because the Everblades won before him winning a Stanley Cup. That actually made me laugh. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Well, what I liked about that whole story is, when Paul talked about how he's become, this gentler, kinder, funnier guy with the media, because his son is now in the media and he wouldn't want somebody treating his son like crap. So
yes.
I wish all coaches felt that way.
Right?
Pretend you have a son who's a broadcaster. Would you say that to him, or a daughter? Would you say that to her?
Brother.
Yeah, it's all about nepotism.
Yeah. No, it's a great part of the story. The whole Maurice family thing was really cool, but I'm happy for Paul. And I think, it'll be, as we know, it's hard to repeat, but they've done a nice job keeping most of that team together, and I think they're going to be among the favorites to go do it again.
Well, Sean, very happy to see you healthy, and this season.
I'm happy to be healthy.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. And this season's about to start soon, so we're looking forward to seeing you in the booth. Sean McDonough is joining us on the Hockey Show. Thank you for joining us, Sean.
Yep.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
That's right.
Take care.
Coming up next, we have the studio host for the brand new Monday Night Hockey on Amazon Prime in Canada, Adnan Virk. All right, we are joined by Adnan Virk now, and he has a brand new gig on Amazon Prime. This is in Canada only, folks. Canada only. So you're going to miss out on this in America.
Well,
but
for now, hopefully.
For now, hopefully. Hopefully they expand that out. This is Monday Night Hockey. He is the studio chair, and I think it's going to be pretty good. They got a nice little lineup. Even Mark Messier's on this broadcast. So yeah, it's going to look good. They also have Amazon Prime Coast to Coast, which is kind of like Red Zone and kind of like MLB Network's Big Inning. We talked about that before the interview started, and I think this is going to be a good look. Why don't you describe what's going on right now at Amazon Prime up in Canada right now, Adnan?
Well, first off, Roy, David, a pleasure to be on the show. I'm big fans. Let's go back to your best hockey movies list in the summer. Slapshot was number one from Roy, no question. But I love the fact he gave some love to Goon.
Yes.
Goon is a fantastic movie. I mean, for those who haven't seen it, Jay Baruchel is so funny, and he is a diehard Montreal Canadiens fan. Like, you guys know what a huge hockey guy he is.
Yeah.
I saw Seth Rogen at the Critics' Choice Awards earlier this year, and of course, like all Canadians, the way I got his attention was by saying I was Canadian, and Seth said, "Oh, great," and I said, "Can I get a picture?" He goes, "Sure." And I said, he goes, "Where are you from?" I said, "I know you're from Vancouver. I'm from Kingston." To you guys, it's a small town in Ontario. It's a few hours from Toronto.
I know what Kingston is.
Yeah,
it's
Roy
Jamaica.
knows it. That's right. As a kid, you're from Jamaica? I'm like, damn right, man.
No.
I know. Kingston, halfway between Toronto and Montreal, birthplace of Don Cherry, Kirk Muller, Doug Gilmer, to give you a few.
Yeah.
But anyways, so Rogan goes, yeah, that's great. And I go, hey, man, This Is the End is one of the all-time great movies. And I said, I love you and Jay Baruchel together. And he laughs and he goes, he's actually staying at my house this week and I'm still friends with him, which is a reference to the fact him and James Franco are no longer friends, which is in the movie This Is the End. Anyways, Baruchel insisted on wearing a Habs hat the entire movie. And Rogan at the time was like, dude, no one's understand. Can you just wear like a Yankees hat, something a little more? He's like, no, I'm repping the Montreal Canadiens the entire time. So
I mean, he picked him up on a plane. He picked him up on a flight from Canada. Correct. Of course he's going to wear a Canadiens cap.
I mean...
Yeah, correct. That is how the movie starts. And, of course, Liev Schreiber's great in it. The one hockey movie that I would throw out there you guys did not mention, The Rocket, which is a fantastic movie. I mean, it's about Maurice Rocket Richard, and it's a great, great film. I mean, it's, again, being Canadian, I'm sure did not get much of a U.S. distribution deal in fairness to you guys.
Right, yes.
I remember when it came out, it was awesome, and it's particularly beloved, obviously, in French Canada because of Rocket Richard, but that's a great hockey movie, The Rocket, if you haven't seen it.
A few people did mention on social media after we came out with that episode about The Rocket, and I wasn't familiar with it at all, so I think that's going to be a homework assignment that we need to watch that.
Yeah, we got to check that one out. Back to Amazon Prime.
Sure.
Up in Canada.
Back to work.
Canadian only, folks. Why don't you describe what's going on? Because they got some good stuff happening there, including, actually, this one's going to be in America as well. That's based off inside the NHL. They got a nice little docuseries.
That's what I'm excited for.
Yes. Why don't you describe what's going on right now with Amazon Prime and the NHL?
Oh, you got it, Roy. Listen, I'm so fired up, man. It's great when they reached out to me. Amina Hussein, who's an old friend from ESPN, and she said to me, she goes, I don't know anything about hockey, but I know you're Canadian and I know you know hockey. I said, all right. She goes, I know you're a good host because we worked together at ESPN. So Amina's a sister from the Bay Area. She told me, she goes, I know Teemu Selanne. That's about it. But she introduced me to the Amazon bosses, and I said, listen, I normally have that Canadian humility, but I got to be honest with you, I'm the perfect guy for the job. I said, I'm Canadian. I know these teams. I know the terrain, but I've lived in America for 14 years, so I understand U.S. sports television, the way you guys want to do things. I watch Carissa Thompson on Thursday nights. I know the way Amazon does football, so let's do this. So I'm thrilled to have the gig, man. I'm going to be the studio host, and originally I thought this will be great. I get to have Sunday dinners with my parents in Toronto. I'll be in some studio. I'll fly home Tuesday, back to off-season baseball, NHL Network in the off-season. We're good to go. But they said, no, we're going site to site, just like Amazon football. So the good news, fellas, we do get 5 Sunday dinners in Toronto with mom and dad. We do get 5 trips to Montreal, which is one of my favorite cities. But here's the big news. 1 trip to Edmonton in mid-December, which I've never been to, and 4 trips to Winnipeg, Manitoba, including one in February. Roy, as you know, I live in Newark, like I live in New Jersey, the Newark airport. I don't even know how you get to Winnipeg. I'm going to have to go Newark to Minnesota, Minnesota to Winnipeg. Manitoba in February. I will have stories and adventures for you guys. But listen, it's a great crew. John Forslund, as you guys know, is a terrific play-by-play guy. He's been calling hockey. I believe this is going to be his 40th year, which is crazy. Johnny's awesome. And then the other dudes I know, I mean, Jody, Shelley, and Thomas Hickey. I've worked with the NHL Network. Shelley's done stuff with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Hickey works with the Islanders. Blake Bolden does a great job. She's done stuff with ESPN. And you mentioned Moose, Roy. I'm going to be with Messi the first 2 weeks, which are going to be in Montreal and Toronto. He's going to be doing other stuff for Amazon as well. So it's going to be sick, dude. I can't wait.
Yeah, and Blake Bolden has had a career, like, it's blossoming right now. It's like almost like Sarah Nurse. Like, if she wasn't playing, she would probably be more of the Blake Bolden role. She would probably be on media right now, just doing stuff. But
for those who don't know, Blake played hockey, like in the Women's Hockey League, and then became the first ever Black women's scout for the LA Kings. And now as an analyst is fantastic. So you're right, Roy. Not only is she a trailblazer, but she's doing great work. I can't wait to work with her.
So this face-off series, Adnan, I got to talk a little bit more about it. Like, I was lucky enough to see the first episode, and just the way that the production value, the way that they tell stories, the way that they kind of weave in and out of the storylines. Like, we can't give away too much, but really, really cool stuff. I'm excited to see what they do with. They got 2 episodes dedicated to the Stanley Cup final, not just one, which is going to be sick. Because we're talking about how crazy of a series it was, but we saw a clip of what happened during the final, and I think we have that to play in the back, boys. We had a clip of what Connor McDavid did, and it's gone viral at this point because he was flipping out. Roy and I think it's from after Game 2. But
it was after Game 2.
We're pretty sure it was after Game 2. But can we play that, boys? As it got me so pumped up for this series.
That's not good enough. The finals is right now.
That's not very McDavid-like.
No.
But that's what's so awesome about this is That's what we're going to see. We're going to get to see these guys in the unguarded moments that we don't usually get to see them. That's what makes it so cool. That's what made the first episode so cool. Can we say what it focused on if I don't give anything away?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, it focused on
Them losing game 2.
Well, no. The first episode is all about Willie Nylander and David Pastrnak and their friendship and that Leafs-Bruins series in the first round, and it was really awesome, the stories that they told. But that's kind of the unique thing about it, Adnan. And I don't know how much you've seen. I don't know if you've seen more than I have. I would assume maybe you have. But
yeah,
is it as awesome as I'm kind of excitedly anticipating?
100%, David. When we had the Amazon meetings, they showed us some stuff behind the scenes. And I was able to see some of the episodes. They sent us a link for it. Dude, it's awesome. Like, I remember, Roy knows I'm a Flyers fan, which always surprises people because, being Canadian, like, I understand you become a Flyers fan real quick. My brother was a front runner, cheered for the Oilers. Oilers 85-87, played Philly in the finals. And, of course, I beloved Ron Hextall and Rick Talk and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
The point is, I have a video cassette from years ago. It's called Blood, Sweat, and Cheers. And it's about the 1987 Philadelphia Flyers. And it's like, stories of Peter Zezel and Dave Poulin and all the rest of it. And I'm like, I wore out that tape. And you guys know, as you're hockey fans, it's not just about watching the games. It's all those behind-the-scenes stories.
Yeah.
It's those slow-motion shots and the sounds of the ice and the way the guys are talking smack in the locker room. Like, it's the bet. It's catnip for people like us who really love the sport. And I think it's funny, even casual fans will say, oh, I love the Winter Classic, or I like the HBO 24/7. This is like the HBO 24/7 on steroids, because to your point, it's not just well shot and cool cinematography and just, showing your team. It's stuff you normally don't see. And that's the thing I don't want to give away. But as you guys said, we don't see McDavid like that. There's at least 3 or 4 other things while watching it. I was like, wow, like, I'm surprised we're allowed to see this, because this is now shaping different perceptions of certain players. So it's awesome. You guys are going to love it.
Quick trivia question for Roy. What former Panthers great was on that 1987 Flyers team?
Scott Mellanby.
Boom.
Oh, yeah.
Boom.
Who you think you're talking to here?
My man.
These documentaries, it's like The Guys on the Bus, the documentary about the Oilers.
Boys on the Bus,
like,
yep.
When I saw that on NHL Network, I was like, wow, they actually let the cameras in. And they didn't necessarily want the cameras in for that Connor McDavid moment, because they pushed them back and dropped that curtain. It was like,
that's you want to protect your asset. He's maybe one of the the biggest asset in the NHL. So
yeah,
but I think that kind of thing is what endears the fans more to these guys, because you get to see them as people. They put their pants on just like we do. They're not the superstar millionaires
that
you
pads on just
well,
like
no, but that's what I think is so awesome about it. That's what gets me pumped. That's what gets my blood flowing. Is like, I want to see these guys like we are. Like, I'm pissed off after I give up 5 goals in a men's league game.
Right.
Why can't I see Stuart Skinner or Sergei Bobrovsky in the same situation? Like, we're all human. We all give up goals, right?
Sure. And to your guys' point, like, you might forget for a second just how compelling that Cup final was. Like, the fact that Florida went up 3-0 and that Edmonton came roaring back. Anytime you get a Game 7 and you've got McDavid, the biggest player on the planet, and Greg Cody's reputation on the line. I still can't believe how it all turned out. But thank God for the Florida Panthers and you guys.
Oh, my God.
Okay, and let's
we got to send him a Mick Overrated shirt.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we got a discount. Metal Log Media. That's how I got mine.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
All right, let's go division by division here for a preview of the 2024-25 season. Let's start with the Atlantic Division. Obviously, the Stanley Cup champions are in that with the Florida Panthers, but Boston's still there. Tampa, without Steven Stamkos, is still there, and obviously we got Toronto, and it's looking like Toronto versus Florida out of that division, right, Adnan?
Yeah, it's interesting. I want a quick thought on Tampa, because I feel like people think they're going to take a step back, and I'm like, listen, whenever you still have Victor Hedman and you got Vasilevsky and you've got that star power involved there, to me, I'm like, and the fact that you had Jake Gensel, like, you lose Stamkos, fine. He signs for 4 years, $32 million. You give that exact contract to Hedman, but then you're signing in Gensel's UFA. I'm not taking Tampa lightly, although I know they're up and down last year. Mm-hmm. Listen, Toronto's interesting. You're bringing Craig Berube now as the coach. Who knows what he's going to bring, but it's still the exact same team. And it's so funny, fellas. Like, every year I'm like, okay, something's going to change Toronto. I'm like, nope. Still Brendan Shanahan, still all the Page Report players. Everyone's like, no, at some point they're going to have to trade Tavares or Mitch Marner's gone. Like, nope, still the same old thing.
Yeah.
They have to hope that injury-prone Joseph Woll and Anthony Stillards can get it done, because that, again, is the question when it comes to their goaltending and the fact that those star players just aren't able to elevate come postseason time. Like, it's great to be able to see what Nylander and Matthews and Marner are able to do, but come playoff time, they haven't been there. So I will be a little skeptical on Toronto trying to overcome, decades of not being able to win since '67. But Berube's a good coach, so we'll go there. As far as your Florida Panthers are concerned, listen, I think it's been an amazing story, because you go from President's Trophy winner to underdog to Stanley Cup champion, And naturally, you're going to lose a little bit. But again, you're still returning your core. You're still returning your key players. Your top 8 scorers are still in the Florida Panthers. To me, that depth there is unquestioned and a big part of why they'll be successful. And of course, Bobrovsky there's no reason he shouldn't bounce back as well. Bruins are fascinating because Ullmark gone. Swayman hasn't signed. Like a little bit of what's happening with Boston Bruins? Like I think they should be in the mix, but I'm like, you went from having 2 goalies, like, oh, they're both studs, who cares, 1A, 1B, to now one guy gone and one guy discontent. So I'm really fascinated as what's going to happen in Boston.
Ain't dark horses coming out of the division? Buffalo, Ottawa, Montreal, Detroit.
Detroit's one that's interesting, Roy. They haven't made the playoffs in 5 years now. They got closer last season. Maybe Stevie Y can pull the trigger this year, make a couple of moves. At least they've signed their younger players in their core. Ottawa, I still think, is a year away. Buffalo, I mean, it's been a 13-year drought, which is terrible. That's the longest in sports right now, along with the New York Jets. But in Lindy Ruff, we trust. I don't think Buffalo's going to make a push yet next season, at least.
So moving on to the Metro Division, I'm big on the Rangers this year. It's kind of hard not to be. Best goalie in the league, in my opinion. Very top-heavy roster, but they've got some depth. But that division, it's always a little murky. I know Roy doesn't like talking about the Penguins, but they're always hanging around. Rob Brinzamore's got a great squad in Carolina. The Caps made some moves this offseason too. So you never know. And the Devils, well, we got to talk about, we won't do it right now, and we'll do it another time. But we got to talk about Jacob Markstrom's mask, because that thing is bleeping scary with like the bloodstains on it. But overall, the Metro, Adnan, that's where you live, in your backyard. Yeah. Who do you like?
I think it's the Rangers as well, David. Like you said, they're just so talented. And to me, I was surprised by some of their supplementary players. Like Alexei Lafreniere scored 28 goals last year. Like, I think that was very under the radar how well he played
for him too.
Right, yeah. He finally lived up to those high expectations. Exactly, those number 1 draft pick. He was actually really good. You still got Panarin at 120 points. Trocek's coming off a career, 77 points. Yep. Those guys are able to step up. The fact that Panarin scored 49 goals. I mean, maybe they dip a little bit, but they've got talent. Of course, with Shesterkin, you can't count them out. I'm glad you mentioned Washington, David, because it's fascinating to me. I was looking at their numbers and stuff. Now, first off, Ovechkin needs 42 goals to pass Gretzky, of course, the most goals in hockey history. But it appeared like he wasn't going to do it last year. 8 goals in the first 43 games, 23 in his final 36. That's a 52-goal pace over a full season. So maybe he gets it done. He's got 2 years left on his contract. Maybe he does it this year. How about the fact they deal Darcy Kemper for Pierre-Luc Dubois? I was like, that is fascinating to me. It makes sense because Charlie Lindgren had a breakout season, but I'm curious what that means to the Capitals. Yeah. They snuck in the playoffs last year. I'm not sure what that means moving forward. The Devils, I still like their young talent. I mean, I still think they're kind of in the mix. To me, the Metro is a very competitive division, but I feel like it's Rangers, and after that, people fall in line. And the Penguins, Malkin's tailed off, but Crosby hasn't. I mean, it's amazing. He's still a point-a-game player, as much as we get tired of seeing him.
No, I'm sorry. Moving on to the Western Conference in the Central Division. Obviously, you got the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche. There you go. All right. So the rest of the division, though, they're playing for third and possibly the wild card spot. How's that division looking?
Well, I want to start with the Blackhawks first, because I'm looking at Connor Bedard, and I'm like, what's going to happen here as far as the sophomore slump is concerned? They had 52 points last year. And I look again with my baseball hat on. I say, okay, the Royals lost 106 games last year, and this year they're going to win 82 games at least and probably make the playoffs. So what would it take for the Blackhawks to turn things around? It seems like it's way too insane for it to happen now, especially when you got Peter Mrazek and Arvid Soderblom in net. But I'm curious to see what they can do as far as going a little bit forward, coming off 2 of the worst seasons in franchise history with Kyle Davidson there and obviously running things. As far as Colorado's concerned, I'm not as bullish on Georgiev as others might be. Like, I think he's a bit of a roller coaster goalie, and I'm not really sure if he's the number 1 guy. As a group, they gave up over 3 goals a game last year, which in today's NHL is a little bit tricky. But I do love Landeskog. It looks like he's going to be coming back to the NHL after 2 seasons away. Who knows what he can provide? Nichushkin is going through the whole NHLPA player assistance program. Who knows what he can bring you? But Georgiev, final year of his contract, and obviously McKinnon, Rantanen, those guys should be great. So I think you're right, Roy. It feels like Colorado and Dallas for me. And by the way, the Dallas Stars, I remember a couple of years ago talking with Brian Lawton, 2 of the NHL Network guys, like what a disappointment Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin was. It's kind of amazing to me because it felt like it was just like a sunk cost fallacy. These guys are not going to be worth the return. And credit to them. I know Jason Robertson drives the bus. Pavelski's fantastic, but Haskinen's a great defenseman. But like Dallas has gotten more than I thought from those guys who for a while were very overpaid.
And we can't forget about the Jets either. They obviously had the Vezina-winning goaltender in Connor Hellebuck. And they might actually – I mean, they won the division. Really, right?
Bones did a good job up there last year.
Yeah. So, I mean, they got them in third place, possibly in third place as well, depending on what Dallas and Colorado does. Dave, let's move on to the next division.
I was going to say quickly because David mentioned Bonus now walks out the door. Remarkable career. I remember Rick Bonus, 92, 93 Senators, like Alexander Daig, and he still hasn't aged. Like Rick Bonus looks unbelievable. I guess in his 70s. So we'll see what Scott O'Neill can do.
So in the Pacific, maybe the most fun division, I think, to follow last year, at least for me, just because like Vancouver kind of came out of nowhere a little bit to take that division. Edmonton on fire the second half of the season. I don't know what to think about the LA Kings because it feels like they're always in the mix, but then sometimes they're not. They got Darcy Kemper. Is that going to help them get out of the first round? I don't know. Vegas is always in the mix. Calgary. Is Calgary a playoff team this year? Maybe, maybe not. You never know with the Flames. And then you got Seattle, who was a playoff team 2 years ago. You got the Sharks, who are going to have maybe two of the most exciting young players in the league this year.
And the Western Conference champions.
Yep. Oh, and Utah, the newest team.
Utah's in the Central. Utah's in the Central.
That's right. Oh, that's right. Utah's in the Central Division. Thank you, Badowski.
Getting called out.
Well, you say something in my ear in the moment, I'm just going to go with it. Like, you know.
Just trying to help.
Yeah, fair enough.
Thanks, Ethan. Yeah, he just shot David the Bird, by the way, on his sarcastic response. Yeah, but Central Division, Ethan.
So fair enough. So back to the interview, Adnan. What are your thoughts on the awesome Pacific Division?
By the way, I was hoping for so many other nicknames in the Utah Hockey Club. First of all, I was hoping for the Yeti.
It's got to be the Yeti,
right?
It's got to be
Who
the Yeti.
doesn't love the Yeti?
That's the
Didn't
perfect.
happen.
And the better than Stanley Cups, yeah.
Yeah, I don't like this Utah Hockey Club English influence. Let's talk Oilers first, because you say third straight year they lost, the eventual Stanley Cup champions. Stan Bowman's now in there for Kenny Holland, see what he can do. They lock up Draisaitl.
Amazing that he has a job, by the way. Amazing that he has a job.
After all the stuff that's gone through, Joel Quenneville not back in the league, Stan Bowman is. I'm like, okay, this is how we're doing things. All right. Draisaitl, 8 years, $112 million extension. That's massive. The two guys I keep looking at, Zach Hyman, 54 goals, and Evan Bouchard had 114 points, including the playoffs. That's insane to me. We focus so much, rightfully so, on McDavid and Draisaitl, but if that supporting cast can help out there, and Stuart Skinner looks reasonably good, then I think the Oilers are in there. Kings, I know Doughty got hurt the other day in the preseason game. Hopefully that's not serious. I think they're a team on the cusp. You mentioned the Sharks. David Macklin Celebrini, I think, is a stud. Go ahead, Roy.
That Doughty injury, that seems like almost egg-bladdish.
It looked bad.
It looked bad.
Hopefully it looked a lot worse than it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oof. So that concerns me immediately. Canucks, obviously, Rick Tocchet, he was able to get more, although Pettersson being banged up, I think, certainly hurt them. The fact they went down to Artur Silovs and were still able to win games, their number 3 goalie was interesting. So hopefully Pettersson can bounce back. Quinn Hughes was great, 76 points, 78 games last year. And as far as the Golden Knights are concerned, it's interesting. The fact that Marchessault was not re-signed, cashed in with Nashville. I know it's only one guy, but Mark Stone's a question mark with some of his injuries as well. So I'm curious. Aiden Hill, Logan Thompson, good goaltending, but Vegas, bit of a changing of the guard there for a team that we're used to having a lot of success.
Fair.
Out of everybody in the 32-team league right now, who do you see as someone who is a sleeper?
It's interesting. I would say, it's funny, right? The Jets won the division, but I feel like they're still a sleeper because nobody talks about them. So I think the Jets are, like, in a weird way, kind of a sleeper because they're not a team that gets mentioned. For me, when people mention the Western Conference, it's always going to be Colorado, Dallas, and Vegas, and Edmonton, and Vancouver. But I'm like, I think the Winnipeg Jets are right there with everybody else.
And who do you think will end up being in the final?
Oh, man, Stanley Cup predictions here, always dangerous. I will go with, how about the Vancouver Canucks? It's been so long. So the Canucks finally break through. Wow. That feels like a bold pick. I know, it feels like a too bold a pick. And I'll go Florida Panthers. Healthy?
Yeah. All right.
I'll go.
Who about
Vancouver, Florida. I think you just said Florida. And
Florida.
My brain immediately went, okay, so there's direct flights. Perfect.
No, this is going to be easier, though.
Perfect.
This is going to be easy. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Thank God.
So
I immediately want to think of what's a way that could imperil the hockey media the most. How far can I get? All right, Vancouver, Florida. But you're right, direct flights.
So honestly, like that's a huge difference maker, as we all learned last June. Big time.
Oh my God. The stories that I heard from the NHL Network people was insane. I'm like, well, how hard can it be? I'm like, how hard can it be?
Let me tell you.
How many flights do you think are going to Edmonton? Like, how many people do you think on an average week are going to Edmonton from Florida? I'm like, all right, fair point. I got you.
Our friend Jordan McPherson, who writes for the Miami Herald, had the toughest of all.
Yeah, oh God.
Yeah, his flight got canceled he was supposed to fly from Montreal to Edmonton. Right, and his flight got canceled, and then he had to Uber to Hamilton.
He landed somewhere he wasn't supposed to land. He Ubered an hour away to Hamilton, I believe, and then had to take a flight to Calgary, and then Uber to Edmonton and get there, like literally walking in the door during warm-ups of Game 6 only for Florida to lose 5-1, and we got to fly back home the next day for Game 7.
Yeah, it was a disaster for him and everybody else.
But they won Game 7, and
here we are.
happily ever after.
I remember as it was unfolding, I was like, man, nobody is happier for Roy Bellamy than me. I was like, what Roy has suffered through, I'm like, this does not make sense. The effort this dude is making to go to Edmonton, like, they got to win this thing. You and Billy Lindsay, the happiest people I was for. By the way, Billy Lindsay might have been the most memorable moment on NHL Network. He got choked up when they made the Cup final. Yeah. I was on the set with him, and I go, Billy Lindsay, and he's just like, all we've been through. I was like, oh my God, it was awesome. Like, I was like, really I love people who are that passionate about their team. Great moment. Love Billy.
It felt like Jeremy Roenick when the Blackhawks won, in 2010.
Yeah.
And he got choked up. I'm like, you haven't played for the Blackhawks since what, since 2000? Since 2000?
Since he went to the Flyers, right?
Yeah, since he went to the Flyers. Right. Yeah. Or the Sharks. Was it the Sharks or the Flyers at that time? Like,
I remember when he opened with the Flyers in like 02 or 03 or something.
Yeah. It was Flyers. Because Flyers, it was a great 04, they beat the Leafs. Game 6, he scored the game winner, and I was so pumped up. But you're right. I went like Roenick did have a great run with the Blackhawks, but you're right, Roy. It's not the first team you think of when you think of Roenick.
Yeah,
at least at that point. So,
I mean, the Blackhawks are the first team when I think of Roenick, but yeah, I mean, he's gone through team after team after team.
Well, it's like with Yager. The first team you think of is probably the Penguins, but he's played for 50 teams
everybody.
Since then.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Dave. The fact that Pagnotta was talking last week with you guys, the last episode about Yager, what is he, 56 years old, still playing hockey?
Dude,
like,
unbelievable.
This guy clearly hates his family, does not want to go home, does not want to see his wife and kids. That was the joke. I worked with Holland Chelios, World Cup of Hockey, and I was like, Chelly, how could you keep playing till 46? And without missing a beat, Brett Hall goes, have you seen his family? He can't wait to get away from them.
Yes. I don't blame him. It's a hard life, man.
Oh, man. I love my job.
Adnan Virk, congratulations on your new gig. We are very happy for you, and obviously we're going to get you on the show sometime within the next maybe 3 weeks or something like that, because you are going to return on the show. We appreciate you coming on today.
No, Roy, dude, thank you so much, fellas. Like I said, I'm loving the podcast, what you guys are doing as far as bringing hockey to the masses. And let's get on the Rocket. We'll do a Rocket watch party together. We'll review it here on the Hockey Show.
Absolutely.
Dude.
Yes, that's going to be the next appearance. We are going to do the Rocket. Thanks, Adnan.
Appreciate it, boss.
Thanks, Roy. Appreciate it, boys.